Hello, welcome to Trazen's Vault, and today I'll be continuing with something I'm familiar with by going over Necron Warlord traits and how they can be used to represent the narrative of Warhammer 40,000. So, let's start with the basic ones. Enduring Will. No mortal weaponry will break this warlord's iron resolve. This really emphasizes the sheer physical fortitude of the Necrons. I don't think it will add much to the character, other than, they're a bit tougher than the rest. But I think it's a good, average one if you can't really think of what to do. I'm going to be using a Lord for most of these examples because I think it's just a really good, basic Necron hero. And Enduring Will, you got this Lord here, just very tough, physically. That's about it. But, that means you're a lot more free to choose what you want to do with the character, because a lot of these other ones are a bit more specific. So next we've got Eternal Madness. This warlord's sanity suffered during the Great Sleep, and now he is driven by a wrathful zeal. This one's really fun because it really represents that side of Necrons that's very, they've lost all of the regalness and the sanity they once had. It's what Necrons aren't supposed to be. It's the ones that get messed up. There's a lot of great stories about them, and I think this one is great if this is the kind of story you're going for with your Necrons. Next we have Immortal Pride. This warlord refuses to allow his warriors a single step backwards, even in the face of intense psychic onslaught. Now, I try not to be very competitive, but for Zarkin Dynasty players, half of this warlord trait is the same as part of the Dynasty's special rules, which is the ignoring mortal wounds on a 5-up, which is a pretty good rule. So if you don't have that Dynasty, that part would be very useful, I think. And then the second half, I think, is useful for all Dynasties. But I do think that, that first one being the same may not be a great choice for Zarkin Dynasty. But if you really want this character, now that is going to be a different story. So obviously they, even with those mortal wounds, let's say like a librarian is just smiting the heck out of this lord, but they are standing strong because they're just ignoring the mortal wounds. And then you've got, combat attrition tests for for like nearby units, just the modifiers don't even matter. Just everything about this says, it says this is a warlord that is mentally fortified, whereas Enduring Will is physical fortitude, and Mortal Pride is mental fortitude. And I think that's a very cool, those different types of angles you can have there. So next up we have Thrall of the Silent King. This warlord pursues the agenda of the Silent King, and so commands his legions with unparalleled authority. So this is going to increase the effect of aura abilities. I guess you could think of it as the warlord spreading their presence farther, shouting their words louder, just to herald the Silent King's words, I guess, his arrival, whatever it may be. It works great on Royal Wardens. I think that if you have a Royal Warden as your warlord, this is probably the best choice. I've done it before. It's very fun, and I think it fits the Royal Warden as a character, at least in the Zarkin Dynasty, which is the dynasty I play. So that's just my opinion. Next we have Implacable Conqueror, which is an aura. This warlord strides at the head of his legions. If you want a very combat-oriented warlord, one that just wants to get into the thick of the fight, this one is perfect. Next, we have Honorable Combatant. This warlord is a strict adherent to the ancient codes. This one is a good parallel to Eternal Madness, where the Eternal Madness is gone completely insane. Honorable Combatant represents this lord still holding on to their mortality, I suppose, the life they once had. And it basically means your lord chooses a foe and goes to duel them and is a bit better at it than they'd be at fighting anyone else. And then when they're done, the rest of the royal court politely claps at them. So this one, if you want that angle, it's very good. So overall, these generic warlord traits are all very good choices. And now going into the dynastic warlord traits. These ones are going to be very dynasty specific, and I do think they do a great job for the most part at fitting the dynasty they're from. So we'll start off with Mefrit, Merciless Tyrant. Warlords of the Mefrit dynasty will suffer no threats to their rule, annihilating any who dare to oppose them. Now this one is, again, a more basic one. It's like Enduring Will, because you're adding 1 to the strength and attacks characteristic of this warlord. A very basic thing, but, again, if you got a combat-oriented warlord, this one's good, and especially if you want them to just, annihilate everything. They're a bit stronger, and they got a bit more fury within them. So just a little bit, but in 2 different ways. So, the whole dynasties thing is about destroying simple warlord trait for, no offense, a simple dynasty. I really like Mefrit. I think they're one of my favorite of the dynasties. But let's be honest, their whole gimmick is destroying things. But this represents them very well. I like their sun weapons. Very fun. But that's for the Relic episode. That'll be a fun one. Nefric, Skin of Living Gold. Those who gaze upon this Nefric warlord are blinded by his radiant glory. This one is one of my favorites because Nefric's, I just imagine a really haughty overlord, just skin of gold, and just so blinding. It's so hard for everyone else to see, and I just think it's such a great narrative image in my head. I think it's, like I said, if you're playing the narrative, this one is great, especially if you're doing that dynasty. It's almost comical. But it's a good one. Nihilak, Precognitive Strike. This Nihilak warlord has foreseen his moment of glorious victory, or rather, the Yithsir has done so. So this, you got all those cryptexts predicting the future for these. Or is that what? No. Sorry, I'm not very well versed in the Nihilak dynasty. I know my channel's name is Trazen's Vault, but I don't know. Mostly I know them for being very territorial, and I guess this one kind of represents that in a way. They're trying to one up their enemies, seeing the future. So that's a fun one there. I say a lot of these are fun because I think they genuinely are great representations of the Necron's characters. Novak, Blood-Fueled Fury. Warlords of the Novak dynasty are awakened and empowered by the gushing blood of the foe. There's not really much to say on this one. Novak loves murdering people and letting the blood spray everywhere, so it just makes sense. Sautek, Hyperlogical Strategist. Sautek's warlords can apply a filter of infallible logic to develop unbeatable strategies. Get to refund command points sometimes. So it's a slightly smarter warlord. Again, they're all very simple to fit the dynasty's character. Again, it just works. And now this last one here, I'm kind of disappointed with, especially since it's my own dynasty, but let's take a look at this. Zarakan, the Triarch's Will. Certain in the knowledge that they act as arbiters of the final Triarch, This Zarrican warlord exercises overwhelming strategic authority. So it's like if, let's say the Lord, because this is all about command protocols. You get to use one for 2 rounds instead of 1. Because normally you choose one different one for each round. This one you get to choose the same one for 2 rounds, which can be very good. So let's say they just want, this warlord wants this one, let's think Space Marines. There's a captain, and the Lord recognizes this captain's authority and power, so he just wants to completely annihilate him. We're doing Protocol of the Vengeful Stars twice, 2 rounds, just shooting focusing all the fire on this captain for 2 rounds, making sure he will die. Well, I guess a captain isn't a very good example. Maybe like, I don't know, some like Terminators. There's a squad of Terminators that are just far, I don't know, whatever. You get the idea. One thing needs to die, and they're going to keep shooting at it with all of their might until it's dead. So it's like if you want something really done right, you do it during this time. It's a very loose warlord trait. Like, it's the logic for why it is what it is not, it doesn't make too much sense narrative wise. I mean, it's a good warlord trait, but just based on the story we're going for here, it's not too exciting. Now, I can see it being used occasionally, but I wouldn't use it for the same warlord like every game. Like, if I have a certain objective in mind, I will use this. But that is it for the warlord traits. I just think they're all pretty solid for the story of the Necron tier, and I just really enjoy using them all. So thank you guys for listening. I will see you all in the next one. Goodbye.